All right, guys, let's talk about how we drove a 773% return for an e-commerce client using Google Ads. So here is the Google Ads account right here. And as you can see, this is for May of 2021. And if we zoom in down here at the bottom, so you can see we spent $80,000 that month. And from that, we drove about $616,000 in revenue, which comes to a 773% return on ad spend. And for those not familiar, that just means that for every dollar we spend on ads, we're making $7.73 in revenue. And you can see that we had a 15% conversion rate. So pretty good performance for this account. The average e-commerce conversion rate is about 2%. So we are outperforming that average by about 7.5 times. So that's awesome. That's a part of why we're driving so much revenue and such a high return on ad spend here. Now, we've been doing this for quite a while, about 15 years running Google Ads campaigns. And in that time, we've heard from a lot of people who don't like Google Ads. You know, they feel like it can't drive that good of a result, or it's too expensive or something like that. And that's not totally off base, but you have to understand Google's goal is to get as many advertisers to spend money with them as possible. And Google's decided that the best way to do that is to make it as easy as possible to set up an ad account and to start advertising. And that makes sense. The easier it is to get started, the more advertisers will get into the platform, and you know, the more money Google makes. The problem is PPC advertising is complex by nature. There's no real way around that. We've taken over accounts from other agencies, from professionals who do this every day, and immediately doubled or tripled performance. So it's easy to get started, but it's not so easy to drive a strong result. And that's why people struggle with Google Ads, because right out of the gate, the system basically guarantees that if you don't really know what you're doing, you're just gonna make a lot of mistakes that cost you a lot of money. So let's talk about some of those mistakes so we can see how we got this account to a 773% return on ad spend. And we'll go through the details on that a little bit. So the first thing we have to understand is that while a lot of Google's automated features may make it easy to get started, they often cause you to essentially de-optimize your account. So here's an example. This is me setting up a new campaign in Google Ads. And you can see the networks here are set up with both search and display network. Those are both enabled by default, but these two networks are completely different. The search network is what you see when you do a Google search. So you go to Google, you do a search. Search network ads are what show up at the top of the search results. Display network ads are on other websites, so they're not even on Google. So you know, you go to a website and you see banner ads, right? On that site, here's a screenshot from CNN.com. You can see these banner ads that I've highlighted here. Those are Google Display Network ads. And as you can imagine, what works in display is completely different from what works as an ad in the search results. And yet Google's got both of these enabled by default. So obviously we don't want that. You don't really typically want to start with the Google Display Network. You want to disable that unless you really know what you're doing with that. So this is a little further down that page. You can see here all countries and territories is enabled by default. Obviously, most advertisers are not going to want to show ads in every single country around the world. So you'll want to change that to your target location. That's a pretty simple one, pretty basic, but let's scroll down a little bit further down the page. And this is where you set bids and budgets. So you set your budget that you want to spend every day. And then this part that I have highlighted here is where you set up your bids. So Google Ads is a pay-per-click auction system. And this is where you're supposed to tell Google how much you're willing to spend for a click on your ad. But look at this, this right here. By default, Google is saying, Google will decide how much you pay for each click on your ad, and we'll just try to maximize the number of clicks to let you spend your entire budget every day. And notice this checkbox here, there's no limit to that click cost, that bid per click by default. And so Google's basically saying, we're not gonna set a limit to your click costs, to how much you spend per click, and just trust us. And it's easy to think, all right, Google's gonna be kind of reasonable here, but we were setting up a new project recently and we forgot to change this setting. In that new account, Google charged our client $450 for a single click on their ad. $450 for a single click. And they did that twice in one day. So we had a budget, this client had a budget of $500 a day, and Google charged us $450 per click for 2 clicks. So they spent almost double our budget, $900 in a single day. and $450 on each click. And then when we called them and complained, they refused to refund any of it. So what's even crazier here about this setting is that Google hides the actual option you want to choose by default. So if we look here, this box outline that says or select the bid strategy not recommended, that's what you want to click. You want to click that link right there, because when you click it, you get these options. And what we want to do here is select this manual CPC bidding, and notice it's buried down here at the bottom of the list. So you see what I mean here? Google's really pushing you to do pretty much anything other than what you really should be doing. They're really trying to push you to adopt their automated features in some way, because that's how they get more advertisers on the platform. Automated features are easier for you to manage. It makes it more likely you're going to get up and running, but unfortunately it makes it more likely you're going to waste a lot of money. So when you're dealing with these ad platforms, Google, Facebook, whatever it is, it's important to remember that you are the product. Every single menu item, every single option is all explicitly designed to make Google or Facebook or Spotify or whoever it is the most money possible. And that typically means getting as many people on the platform as possible. Now, it may also mean in some cases that they're helping these advertisers get a solid return, but that's not really the primary goal. As you can see here, it's really just easy setup and getting most people on board. And that's gonna conflict with your goal, which is getting the maximum return on your ad spend. So here's another example where Google's gonna steer you wrong if you're not careful. So this is a client that we have in the airport parking space. And I'm not revealing anything magical here. This is just some really basic recommendations by Google. But this is the recommendation screen within Google Ads. You've probably seen this if you've run Google Ads for a little bit. And this is where Google makes recommendations on how to improve your account. You can see it gives you a nice little score right up here at the top. We can see we've got 53.7%, but that's because we don't care about the score. It's meaningless. This account is absolutely crushing it with that 53% score because these recommendations don't make sense, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So let's look at this keyword panel here that we have highlighted, and let's zoom in on this a little bit. So this panel is where Google recommends new keywords that they suggest you add to your account. Now this particular account right here that we're looking at, this keyword recommendation is an airport parking company. And Google's recommending that we add the airport name to our account here. This is Albuquerque in this case, so Albuquerque Sunport, ABQ Sunport. That's the name of the airport. Now it makes sense that we'd want to show up for somebody searching Albuquerque airport parking. If you're looking for parking, that's what we want to show up for. But do we want to show up for somebody searching just for the airport? Like the airport itself? No, not at all. People searching Albuquerque airport are searching for information about the airport or directions to the airport or something like that. We don't want to pay for those clicks. Now, maybe we want to rank for those organically, if possible, just to expose our brand to people that are clearly going to the airport and could be in our target market. But we don't want to pay for those clicks at all, especially because they're, however much they cost per click. In this case, I don't want to say what they are, but yeah, we definitely don't want to pay for those clicks. And not only that, but way more people are searching for airport information than are searching for airport parking information. So the majority of the impressions and the clicks that we would get if we did that would be for people looking for airport information and not people looking for airport parking. And the thing is, Google does this all the time. Most of the keywords that they recommend in this panel will absolutely destroy your account's performance. So you want to avoid this. These recommendations are almost always really, really, really bad. But keywords are complicated in other ways, not just like these recommendations here. There's a lot of nuance to choosing the right keywords. And here's an example. So one of our clients is a window company that we helped grow from about $500,000 a year in revenue to $7 million a year in revenue in about 5 years. And a big part of that growth came from Google Ads. But the window space is interesting, all right? So keywords around Windows pose kind of a unique challenge, and that's because of Microsoft Windows. As you can imagine, most of the people searching window-related searches are actually looking for Microsoft Windows-related stuff, so like software or support or something like that. Only a small fraction of those people are actually looking for Windows for a property, like home windows or Windows on a rental property or something like that, or commercial windows. And because of that, we had to come up with some clever tricks on this account to be able to filter out those software and tech folks and differentiate them from the home Windows people. And that was actually a really difficult challenge to solve. How do we get as many relevant clicks as possible without wasting quite a lot of money on, the majority of people here searching for software related stuff? So there can be a little nuance involved in that. So let's jump back to our e-commerce project that we were talking about earlier and talk about another big thing we did here. So another big thing is that we made optimizations to the website itself. There's a lot of tools out there, but in this case, we use Google Optimize to split test changes to the product pages, changes to the checkout flow, changes to copy, changes to design. And Google Optimize is cool. There's other tools out there. Google Optimize, in this case, lets you create 2 versions of a page, and then you can test them against each other. And it'll measure the impact of those changes. And not just a page, you can actually test an entire checkout flow, or changes to multiple pages. It's super powerful, really, really awesome tool for this kind of thing. And as you can see here, this is one of the experiments here at the bottom. And you can see there's 3 versions of this page. So in this case, it was a product page. You can see this version at the bottom outperformed the other 3 here. This one drove a little over $22,000 in revenue and an average revenue per session, or revenue per visitor, basically, of $5.05. Compare that to the original up here at the top of $4.44 per visitor. And so this new version of the page beat the original with that 97% probability. These tests are really all about probabilities. The way the math works out on a split test, you can't really ever say for certain whether you're getting an accurate result. So you look at you look for high probabilities. And it's helpful if you understand a little bit about how the math works. You don't have to be like a stats PhD or anything, but you definitely want to know some of the major pitfalls with testing and have a lot of experience and judgment to build up to sort of know what kind of changes are going to have a big impact. Otherwise, you're going to spin your wheels a lot. You're going to get inaccurate results. You're going to sort of misinterpret the results. So it's important to get a little bit of experience with that. But Google Optimize is pretty incredible, and we could see that this third experiment version is actually driving about $4,000, a little less than $4,000 in additional revenue, and that's just for a week. So those changes that we made to that page, extend those out to the entire year, and you're talking about $200,000 in additional revenue, roughly, just from this one test. So testing on site can pretty dramatically improve things. Obviously, there's a lot more to running a successful Google Ads campaign, but this is just a little bit of insight into some things to watch out for, some pitfalls, and then some things we did to really try to eke out a great performance. 773% is pretty solid. We're pretty happy with that. We've done better, we've done worse, but 15% conversion rate on an e-commerce site is really, really solid. So really happy with this. Whenever we get to play with all the steps, we get to manage the website a little bit, test ideas there. We get to manage the ads account. Hopefully this will give you guys a little bit of insight into how we do it and some of the pitfalls to really watch out for. Again, I hear a lot from people that say Google Ads is not effective or they didn't get a good result out of it. And yeah, that's usually because right out of the gate, it is tough to do it. But when you use all the tools available to you, you can really drive a pretty impressive result. In most cases, there aren't really that many industries that we've come across. There are certainly some where it's hard to get a good result out of Google, but there aren't that many. But the key is you can't just set up default and let it run. It's really, really important to understand the settings and set them up in the way that is going to maximize your results. All right, guys, see you next time.